Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus, Brady and Luke Peyton. In this video, we are going to be giving a full roundup of all the club action which took place over last week. And of course, we have the Dublin hurling final, the Tip hurling final, the Clare hurling final, the Derry football final, the Armagh football final, the Roscommon football final, and then action from the Leinster Club Football Championship as well, Luke. Once again, a full jam-packed weekend with plenty of action. How did you find it?
Yeah, look, really exciting weekend again. Like when we get to this stage of the year with the club finals, I think it's probably the best time, isn't it? And like some of the games at the weekend, like the quality, particularly we'll get into like the tip game as well, the tip final, the drama with the Clare hurling final, and that's just from the hurling perspective as well. Some big results in football too. So look, excited to get into it as well because it's really shaping up now.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, we'll start with what I'd say was the most dramatic game out the bunch, the tip hurling final, Kiladangan against Kilruane McDonagh's. I mean, Kiladangan 121, Kilruane McDonagh's 2 goals and 18 points. I mean, I genuinely thought that Brian McLaughlin had got the victory for Kiladangan. Obviously, Willie Cleary, 65th minute free to level it up, send the game to a replay. Like, once again, just the Tipperary Championship, the level of competition between the two sides, they're all so evenly matched. But I thought that strike from McLaughlin would have taken the victory, but obviously Cleary sends it to a replay.
Yeah, definitely. And look at that. Look at very, very dramatic kind of circumstances there as well. Also, the big debate, I suppose, coming out of it was that actually a score or not as well. And look, I think Kildangan kind of were can feel a little bit. Well, look, probably a little bit fortunate, I suppose, as well. Was that I think the replays on RTE kind of suggested that look, it was wide anyway at the end. So look, but these are the margins these games go on. It's kind of fine lines, and look, I suppose when it came down to it, ends like Willie Cleary, I suppose, was hitting the freeze all day, hadn't really missed it all, and so look, in the biggest moment as well, he delivered too. And look, I think everybody would be quite satisfied with getting to see that game again because yeah, look, it was absolutely corker of a game.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, I was really impressed, particularly with Paul Flynn, a goal and 4 points from him from open play. I mean, obviously, Liam Cahill coming in as new tip manager. He's going to be keeping a close eye on that county final. If there's a way to throw your hands up and to be kind of picked for a potential run there, particularly in the league, I mean, absolutely Flynn threw his hands up here. Anyone
Yeah.
else impress you in this game?
Yeah, kind of similar to the last couple of games. Jerome Cahill looks like a player that should be starting for Tip next year. I think that he had 2 goals there at the weekend, and the last couple of games he's been man of the match. He's been the best player for Kilruane the entire year. He opted out, as far as I know, last year from Colin Bonner's panel, and I think the talk is that he will be involved back in Tipperary this year, and that Cahill's been talking to him, and that there is a good chance that he will be involved in Tip next year. And I think straight away he goes in, and he's nearly one of their best forwards. It's that Tip forward line already, and like you talk about him. Willie Connors is back from his injury too as well. Great to see him back. He had 2 nice scores at the weekend for Kiladangan, and so I think, look, those 3 players we mentioned there should all be fighting for a starting spot in the 15. But out of new players, I think Jerome Cahill's the big player. And I think, look, we did this last year when we talked about who we thought would be the breakthrough players. And we were talking how we thought it'd be Kieran Joyce would be the player to come through last year. Like, I really think Jerome Cahill will be the player for next year.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a good shout. One that I thought would kind of break through would be Billy Seymour. Obviously, didn't have the biggest impact on this game. Came off after 28 minutes, obviously, so didn't get a full chance to run at it. Do you think maybe an impact like that, maybe a player that didn't shine in this game, maybe can come through, maybe a Seamus Hennessy player like that?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think so. And look, Seymour's kind of gone back a little bit as well in the last little while. That when he was playing under 20s for Tip, when they were winning the All Irelands under Cahill and stuff, he looked like he was going to be an absolute certainty to be playing for Tipperary. It just hasn't really happened for him as well. So, look, I'm really hoping that he kind of refines that form because, like, there's so much talent there as well. Like, but you look through others as well. Keane Darcy hit 2 points. He can maybe have had a bigger influence in the game as well. Keane O'Kelly as well had a really good year for Kilruane and full forward, but again, didn't really have the huge impact that he has had in previous occasions. So I think there's plenty of opportunity as well, though. But no, like some really good performances. The other one as well, I thought was really interesting. Niall O'Mara at centre back, really, really good for Kilruane, and like he still looks inter-county quality, I think. And I know he again another player that went away travelling, opted out as well. So I'll be interested to see if Cahill calls on him too, because like he's still absolutely inter-county quality, and he was fairly lower than centre back all day yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean 2 points as well to his name. I mean the type of the type of impact he could bring to Tip is massive, especially when you consider that over the last 2 years they've lost the likes of Paddy Maher, Brendan Maher, like absolute towering figures in their half back line there, and they've rejigged around. Barry Heffernan's gone to midfield or fullback, like he seems to play everywhere. So O'Mara's addition definitely could be huge for them going forward. Obviously we have to then talk about the replay coming. Obviously, I feel like both sides could kind of look at this and feel like they left it behind them coming towards the game. They both swapped leads coming into the last few minutes. Which side are you actually looking at more so now that has the bit between their teeth? Obviously, Kilruane being in their first final since in a long time anyway. Kiladangan looked like they had it in the bag at a stage as well. Which one would you be kind of leaning more towards for the replay?
Yeah, look, it's a really tricky one because I look at the Kiladangan side and they've the more experience and they probably have the more kind of household names as well, probably players that have broken through recently into tip panels and everything like that too. But then Kilruane just have the form, I think, this year. Kilruane are playing some great stuff for that. I really thought Kilruane nearly did enough to I know they had to hit the late kind of equaliser as well, but they looked right in that game as well. And that I'm nearly, I don't know, I think I'd love to say Kilruane, but I think probably my head would be saying Kiladangan, and that they probably just experienced of being there before probably should get them over the line. And that, yeah, look, they have the likes of Billy Seymour to get more out of him going forward as well. So they just seem to have maybe that bit more. And when Sean Hayes, I thought as well, was quiet enough considering how he's played in previous games as well in the half forward line. That I think they can get more out of him too. So I just think there's more to be got out of Kiladangan's star players than what probably was given yesterday. Whereas, look, Kilruane were relying on O'Mara hitting 2 long range scores. They were relying on Jerome Cahill hitting 2 goals. And yeah, they do. I just think the Kiladangan have maybe a little bit more to improve, but I really, really think it's a kind of a toss of a coin because these teams are like very, very evenly split, and like between the rivalry between the two clubs as well. Look, this is everything that the club championship's about right now. So like it's a game that like it's just not to be missed next week. Like,
oh yeah, without doubt, it's a barn burner either way. I'm going Kiladangan to just about shaded. I think it's going to be another absolutely mouth-watering game. I think they're going to go right down to the wire, but I could just see Kiladangan maybe getting over the line this time. Moving on then to the Dublin hurling final. Kilmacud Crokes remarkably complete the double-double. Absolutely unprecedented achievement in the capital. Once again, they claim both the football and the hurling title, but this one, I don't care saying this, Na Fianna should have won that game. I mean, the chances that they had at the end were absolutely outrageous. I mean, first we have to talk the Eddie Gibbons save from Sean Baxter was absolutely extraordinary. How he managed to get his left leg to that, push it onto the post or the crossbar, I think it was the thing right in the corner. Then the chance, of course, that Dear McClurkin, the wingback, had right at the death. And then, of course, Baxter, there was one where John Tracy, the Na Fianna goalkeeper, lobbed it right down on Eddie Gibbons. It bounced up. Baxter running through, hits it on the volley, and it goes wide. The chance after chance after chance that Na Fianna had. And they just didn't manage to take any of them. And Crokes kept their head and struck over points at key stages, 20 points to 17. They win by Oisin O'Rourke, massive shout out deserved to him. Cian O'Cahasig as well struck over, basically an insurance point for Kilmacud that they would not be beaten. But of course, the chances that Na Fianna had, and then obviously the Colin Curry point, that was over the bar. And the umpire waves it wide in the most confident way I've ever seen an umpire wave it wide, hilariously knowing that it is over the bar. But yeah, Na Fianna definitely let this one slip, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, look, I think with the position they put themselves into as well, when they were 4 points up in the second half as well, to lose that, it's starting to get kind of a little bit worrying from a Na Fianna perspective. Like, you look at the final last year, like, I don't know how they managed to lose that final last year, I suppose, with the Ronan Hayes goal and everything too. And they're just, it's nearly in both codes now that they just seem to be finding ways to lose finals now at this stage. And it's a very worrying trend from their perspective. And that, look, there's a serious talent in that team in both codes, but they need to get over the line. And that, look, as long as this keeps on happening, those questions are going to be there. And look, I think probably wasn't the most fluid game I think ever, but I think the pitch in Parnell didn't help it. But look, Crokes, when it was there to be won, they hit the scores. And look, yeah, they didn't probably play anywhere near what they're capable of as well. And it probably wasn't the most vintage performance ever. But look, finals there to be won. And look, they just seem to have a habit of winning them at the moment. And that's what separates them and every other team in Dublin right now.
Yeah, I'd say that for football and for hurling. I think like they just have a bit of a know-how that means when the game is in the fire, Crokes know that they've been here before and they've done this. Like last year's football final against Jude's was exactly the same, an absolute, arm wrestle, and they just got over the line. Like same against Na Fianna, it was back and forth, back and forth. Oisin O'Rourke pops up with that first goal, and then Ronan Hayes sticks away the second one to absolutely pull the game out of the fire for Crokes. Na Fianna, do you think this one probably almost hurts even more than last year's one? Last year's one, they were caught right at the death, but they had this more kind of a, that they were finally the new team on the block, that they were making their proper breakthrough with Liam Rush and Donald Burke. But now for the second year in a row, they've lost the final that they probably should have won. And that surely stings more.
Yeah, I think so. I completely agree. I think this one probably is worse than that. Look, last year they weren't expected to win. Crokes were heavy favourites in that. And look, they gave it a great crack. But this is the year that they should learn from their mistakes and that they should be able to. And look, they don't seem to have learned from them at all, really. When you're in that situation, when you're a couple of points up in the second half and the game's there to be won and it's there for you to push on and you don't do it in the same way you did last year, it's going to sting more, I think. And look, there's going to be question marks about them until they win one. So, there's huge talent for that team as well. With the Currys, the Currys didn't play their greatest games ever now. They're still relying on Donald Burke, who was imperious, I suppose, was probably the man of the match in the game. But until they actually get over the line, I suppose, look, the questions are always going to be there about them as well. And look, they've good talent in that team, but the finals are there to be won. And I know that some of those players for Crokes, they just seem to have that about them as well. And just to touch on what you said earlier, I think we were talking earlier about kind of Jerome Cahill being the Tipperary player come through. I think Eddie Gibbons will be the Dublin starting goalkeeper next year. I think he's a huge talent, and the thing with him is it's more of a question of when rather than if, because he will be the Dublin goalkeeper for a long, long time.
Yeah, I agree. He's 22 years of age. He's absolutely outstanding, and his composure as well. There was a moment there where one of the Crokes defenders hit the ball across field to him, and Donald Burke was chasing him down, and he kept his nerve and handled it really well. Won a free out. I mean, played as if he was a 35-year-old veteran who'd been around the block multiple times. Bought the free very well. He's 22. And I feel for Micheál Donoghue, he could do a lot worse than putting Eddie Gibbons into goal. I mean, that's a goalkeeper there for the next 10 years there for Dublin. I think in particular, Crokes, if you're talking about going forward now in the future for the Leinster Championship, obviously they got knocked out by Clough-Ballacolla last year, and in a result that not many people saw coming. This year, of course, they're playing against Clough-Ballacolla again. So this is a good way to kind of suss out where Crokes are this year, because one thing that I'm worried for them is I actually don't think Crokes are as strong now as they were last year. Last year's game against Na Fianna was, I think, a much better game. I think there was a higher quality level in the game, and Crokes showed more quality in getting the victory than they did this year. I think Crokes did also pull it out with the fire, but Na Fianna should have buried them in this game. Crokes kind of got lucky. Not lucky in the sense that they don't deserve to win, but I feel like Na Fianna should have took one of those goal chances. And if they had taken one of those goal chances, the momentum that they would have got, surely they would have got over the line. So the nerves that I would have for Crokes is Ronan Hayes only scored 1 point from play and was, marked out of the game really by Conor McHugh. Going forward in the Leinster Club Championship, they're going to need him at his best. That's one of the worries that I would have. And then obviously at the back as well, Bill O'Carroll came on late there at the end, and the amount of goal chances that they coughed up to Na Fianna, a team like a Ballyhale Shamrocks and a Clough-Ballacolla, they'll take them goal chances.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be hugely confident from a Crokes perspective in Leinster. I don't think I think if you look at Ballyhale straight away, they're nowhere near Ballyhale's level right now, and they're just like you said about Ronan Hayes. They're reliant completely on Oisin O'Rourke at the moment, kind of for scores, and that he's kind of leading the forward line. Whereas you look Whiteley's in that forward line. Ronan Hayes are two Dublin starting forwards, I suppose, and you're just not getting enough out of them at the moment, really, for what you should be getting out of your inter-county players. So I wouldn't be overly confident for Crokes at the moment, I think. And I just thought the quality maybe was a little bit lacking. Probably if you compare the two other county finals we're going to talk about this weekend as well, it was probably the weakest of the three games, I suppose, as well. And I don't really think the Crokes be a factor in Leinster. I think maybe they might get to a final, but look, they won't be beating Ballyhale this year as well. And just to briefly talk about, like, I suppose at the end there was kind of some unsavoury enough scenes as well, which kind of the Crokes substitute shouting into the Fianna players'
I
face at the
saw
end.
that. Yeah, that
That was
wasn't nice to see.
no, it was a poor enough kind of end to the game, I suppose, as well. And also then in the speech afterwards as well, when collecting the trophy, how the Crokes captain referred to a dodgy red card. He talked about how the referee gave a dodgy red card, even though Constantine had to go for that. So look, but there was a few kind of instances like that that left a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. I think, and a lot of people in the county are kind of a little bit.
He cursed as
Uh,
well in the.
yeah, he did as well. So all told, a disaster of of a speech. But no, I think they've managed to. It's left a bit of a bitter taste. Those two instances have left a bit of bitter taste, I think, in people's mouth after watching it a little bit, though.
Yeah, like definitely the shouting in the player's face at the full time whistle, like that wasn't nice to see. Not condoning it, but I see that happen all the time. Like every club game, that something like that happens, particularly when a free happens, but when the game's over, the game's over. Shake your opponent's hand, like don't scream in their face. Like I don't really like seeing that. But yeah, for what it's worth, Crokes once again completing the double, absolutely outstanding achievement. Now moving on, obviously the Clare hurling final that was won by Ballyea against Arrow. Again, it's obviously Tony Kelly, Niall Deasy, Aaron Griffin. They're becoming a little, a fantastic trio there for Ballyea, and once again they're Clare champions.
Yep, absolutely. And look, this was a real, like, kind of anxious, nervy enough kind of game, and Era Ogre coming in with huge form into this as well. Shane O'Donnell was, look, everybody was talking about how he hit 1-9 at the semi-final, was utterly unplayable. And then, look, we go into this one as well, and he's kept scoreless. So, look, that's the win of the game, I suppose, right there, is that O'Donnell was just playing insanely well at the moment. And, look, keeping him scoreless was how Ballyea won. Really good performance defensively. It's the same. You can really chalk it down every time. Paul Flanagan and Jack Brown, really, really good in those kind of two full-back, centre-half-back positions. So, look, that's... it's a really, really solid spine to that team. And then obviously, look, you've Tony Kelly as well. That was the other thing as well. Just to briefly say that little kind of hook at the end by Tony Kelly and Shane O'Donnell was probably the win in the game. And it just shows, look, for a player of that quality to get back and to deliver kind of a piece of skill like that as well. Look, that was absolutely massive. And look, that was the winner of the title for Ballyea.
Yeah, and they're flying under the radar quite a bit, Ballier. Like you mentioned about how strong their spine is, like it's objectively brilliant. Like it's an absolutely outstanding team. Then you've got obviously, the fact that this is their fourth Clare title in 7 years. All eyes in Munster are going to be on Ballygunner. Like, can Ballier fly under the radar and cause a shock in Munster?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I suppose I think last year it's probably based off that, is that, look, they had a pretty torrid enough time in Munster last year that they got a fair old beating on the way, but when they went into Ballygunner's path. So like I do think that they will be up against in Munster, and that, yeah, look, it's a really good side, but they probably don't have the pieces that the likes of Ballygunner and probably and Watton appears to, assuming they come out of Limerick, are going to have. So I do think that they'll be underdogs anyway as well. But look, I think they should be considered ahead of the Cork champions, and they should be considered ahead of the Tip champions as well. I think based off what they've done in previous years in Munster, they've experienced coming out of as well. And look, whether that's Kiladangan and Kilruane coming out there as well, and then St. Finbarrs, they haven't proved themselves in Munster just yet, any of those teams. So they have to be considered ahead of them. But yeah, look, it's going to be a big ask, I'd say, against Ballygunner in particular, and then I'd imagine the Piercy.
Yeah, I mean Ballygunner are like my pick anyway to get out of Munster again. I think that they're absolutely fantastic, but I actually do rate Ballyea very highly. I think if they get it going, and they have managed to look pretty good, particularly at the back. You mentioned keeping someone like Shane O'Donnell scoreless in a game like this with the form that he was in. You can't just ignore that. So yeah, I think going into the Munster Championship now will be very interesting to see how they get on. So that's the hurling section finished there now. Moving on, though, to, of course, the football action, which happened over the weekend. Of course, the game that really jumped out to everyone was, of course, the clash of the Derry Titans, Watty Grahams Glen against Slaughtneil. Everyone was thinking, like, God, what a game this is going to be. Shane McGuigan, Conor Glass, Chrissy McCaig, all these players going to be on show. And Watty Grahams Glen absolutely cruised to victory. 112 to 7 points they won by. Shane McGuigan only managed to hit 1 point from play for Slaughtneil. And just Glen were fantastic in this game. And they look even better than they did last year. Malachy O'Rourke there still working his magic with them. And they look a serious match for anyone in this club championship.
Yeah, completely. And that was the thing was I think coming into this game that we thought this was going to be the absolute kind of clash of titans really, and like a little bit disappointing Slaughtneil that like it was there was no real doubt about who was going to win this game the whole way through. And yeah, I know the Cathal Mulholland goal kind of came with maybe about 10 minutes to go, but the game was already over. Done at that stage, it felt like, and yeah, I think that the Glen never really were in ever danger in it, and I suppose I think look, last year was their year they broke through. They got their Derry championships, yeah. And this is the year I think that they push on and that they say they want to win Ulster, that they want to push on and go all the way and try and win an All Ireland, because I think this team's absolutely capable of it as well. That kind of rematch against Kilcoo is kind of looming a little bit too. So yeah, I think that's a big first step for them as well. And yeah, they just looked in huge control. I think it was cagey enough first half, where kind of slow build up, pretty reserved, I suppose, to start the game. But look, the Glen's dominance, I suppose, just was too much as well. And look, it helps when you have a midfield of Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass. Like, it's an unbelievable kind of platform to build off a club level. So with a midfield like that, look, you're gonna do great things, I think, as well. So look, I think they'll take some team to beat them.
Oh, without doubt. I mean, both Glass and Bradley scoring points in this game. They are, in my opinion, the best midfield pairing left in the club championship. I mean, Glass and Bradley pretty much is Derry's first choice midfield pairing. I know, obviously, Niall Toner got a bit of game time there in the Ulster Championship, but Bradley's fantastic. And in my opinion, they are the two best midfielders that Derry have to offer. They're so strong. And I mean, obviously, I've said my opinions on Kilcoo this year. I don't think they're as strong this year as they were last year. I feel like they've achieved their ultimate goal, and the club championship is so hard to go again when you're champions. That's why Currafin stand out as being, the exception, not the norm, really. The club Gaelic football championship is so hard to win, let alone win it back to back. So I feel like the Glen are so determined. They've everything to gain. And I feel like Kilcoo now, instead of being the hunters, I feel like they're the hunted. I feel like a rematch between them two could be an absolute titanic battle. What really impressed you about the Glen in particular in this game? Obviously, you mentioned Cathal Mulholland's goal. Obviously, you've got players like Ethan Doherty there popping up with 2 points. You've got players like Colin McGuckian popping up with 2 points. What really impressed you, though, about them?
They just seem like an all round team. Like, there's no, I don't. Well, obviously the two lads in midfield are superstars, but outside of that, like, they don't really have that definite superstar. They don't have that definite scoring forward really as well. But they all just chip in with scores as well. Like, Michael Warner came up and flipped over 2 points as well, and they just seem to really function as a team, I suppose. Colin Mulholland, we already talked about the goal. He chipped in with a point as well. They're just a nice distribution of scores. They've Danny Talon up in the full forward line, who's obviously kind of a big name stuff, but he didn't even have to score, didn't feature too prominently as well. So look, they've improvement from them as well. They just seem they're a good functioning team, and that they know exactly what they're doing. Their system's really, really strong. They know where they have to be, what they have to do the whole time. And look, defensively, structure wise, they're really, really good. The fact that they've kept Shane McGuigan and forwards like that as well. You've got other really good players as well that have been household names to play intercounty for Slaughtneil, like Slaughtneil players to play for Derry, and they've just kept the 7 points. Like, it's just a really, really strong structure, I think, as well. And look, with an absolute dominant midfield to I suppose to lay the template for how they're going to play the game.
Yeah, is it possible as well that maybe just Slaughtneil didn't really give them that much of a challenge in this game? Like, I mean, took 20 minutes for Slaughtneil to get their first point to Shane McGuigan free. I thought that they looked very cagey throughout the entire game. I thought that they were playing quite a cautious style of football. Do you think maybe that they were a bit worried about the Glen, and rather than focusing on their own strengths, maybe?
It's hard to know. Like, it was kind of in a weird way. The most dangerous they looked was when Brendan Rodgers kind of started bombing forward from the half back line, really, and they didn't really have much of a threat outside that at all. So yeah, I think, look, there's no doubt it was a cagey approach to the game by both teams. The Glen are probably naturally like that they primarily set themselves up defensively, that they make sure that they're functioning that way, and then they worry about the forwards as well, that they're going to kick enough scores and after that. So like, it was always going to be a cagey enough start to the game, but I'd say a bit disappointed. Slaughtneil absolutely offered nothing, I suppose, themselves. So yeah, look, I think they'll be disappointed with their own performance, and look, they can have no complaints really that they were just beaten by a far better team today. Like,
Yeah, I mean, now obviously the Glen go on play against the Tyrone champions, whoever that is, out of Carrickmore, Ergal, Kieran, like whoever it is, that's going to be one hell of a game. Another team that I think are right up there as contenders for the Ulster Championship, and I think the All Ireland, I think they're absolutely fantastic this year. Crossmaglen Rangers beating Granemore 119 to 10 points. Of course, in the last two Armagh finals, they were red hot favourites going into it. Particularly last year's one, they really, would be disappointed by that, the way they lost to Clonairin. But this year, they absolutely left no doubt. 119 to Granemore's 10 points. In this game, Keane McConville, absolutely outstanding. Reno O'Neill, brilliant as well, as they land their 46th senior Armagh title. What did you make of them in this one?
Yeah, this is the one that kind of made me sit up a little bit more, and that like people were talking about how Crossmaglen were kind of back this year and stuff, and yeah, look, it really looks like they are, like, because this was an absolute the cruise to the final of the day. Like, I think it was the last couple of fixtures they had that they were brought to extra time a few times. They were really ran close. That people were saying that, like, let's not get too carried away by them. But that was an absolute statement win, I suppose, and they'll be going into the next round there. I think that they're playing Ballyea, the Monaghan champions next. That look, they should be probably be the favourites in that as well. And then look after that, Kilcoo or Lumen. So like that, it's I think they're in a great position, and that they couldn't have really asked for a better kind of performance going into it as well. And then even as well, Jamie Clark didn't really have a huge impact on the game as well. That they're getting the scores through McConville, through Reno O'Neill, and Clark didn't even have the huge impact there as well. That yeah, if you can shut Clark down, you still have beside him McConville, you've Ronan Fitzpatrick kicking scores too as well. That there's you try and shut somebody down that forward line, and there's some other absolute superstars up there too. So yeah, look, really really impressive from them, and like still some top players like Aaron Kernan. I think it might be his 17th title, maybe. I think it was.
Yeah,
It might have been more than that even as well, because look, but that's just a
it's up
staggering
there.
kind. It's a staggering amount of county titles, and he's still delivering as well. You've James Morgan centre back as well, really really strong too. So yeah, look, I think they've really kind of catapulted themselves further up the pecking order now after that performance, and it's adding in another top team into a crowded Ulster already, because we're talking about the Glen, we're talking about Kilcoo, and now we're talking about Crossmaglen as the teams, and we haven't even got into some of the other sides as well up there yet that are really really good operators too. So yeah, look, it's gonna be just Ulster's gonna be unmissable. All the games from Ulster is gonna be unmissable.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, when you look at it as well, like Paul Hughes is another the Armagh defender that, a fellow who's played senior football for Armagh, and he fills out that half back line alongside James Morgan and Aaron Kernan. Like, that's an outrageously strong half back line. Like, Aaron Kernan was always one of my favorite players. Like, played as a half back, but basically played at corner forward half the time. He spent so much of his time attacking, and just a great, very exciting player to watch. And then obviously Keane McConville, 4 points from play in a county final. Like, that's very, very impressive. And obviously Kieran McGeeney, we'll be definitely keeping an eye on him going forward. We might see him feature for Armagh next season. 8 points in total. He landed 4 frees as well as that one. Then the other final, which happened, of course, in the title. This is a bit of a fairy tale story. Tony Lavin comes on for his first appearance of the season, and 3 minutes later, he kicks the winner as Strokestown beat Boyle. There was a lot on the line here. Strokestown, of course, claiming their first title in 20 years against a Boyle side, which if they had have won, it would have been their first title since the 1920s. When you're looking at it thinking, like, the talent that Boyle have in the team, like the Smith brothers, Enda and Downey, and then Keane McKeown, like, how it took them so long to get to the final is beyond me. Obviously, the competition in Roscommon is fierce with the likes of Porrick Pierces and St. Bridget's and so on. But what a day for Strokestown, Roscommon champions.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this was the I think this was it was a real novel pairing, and that like the last couple of years we've been so used to Porrick Pierce's with the Dailies, and then obviously kind of with the Dolans winning with Bridget's the whole time as well up in Roscommon. Those two teams have had a monopoly kind of on the Roscommon title in recent years. So to get this partnership, I think in there was a nice kind of refreshing change as well. And but yeah, like you're saying, I think a lot of people going into the game would have looked at that Boyle side and thought that with the names, I suppose, in that team, that they probably would have been favourites, I suppose. But like, we're looking at this from the perspective of outside the county, outside the farm as well. But you kind of look at the list of the full forward line in particular, with Dara Craig, Donny Smith, and Keane McKeown, and all inter-county full forward line that you would have thought. And then like you've Enda Smith behind them as well, and it's like there's some really really strong players in that team that you would have thought maybe that those players would have probably catapulted Boyle into being the favourites there. And yeah, look, all of them kind of delivered. Darragh Craig played well. Donny Smith kicked 5 points as well. But like it's yeah, I suppose look, Strokestown probably without the inter-county players still get over the line, I suppose, as well. And look, yeah, the score at the end was it was kind of an awkward looking finish in the left foot, but look, they all count when they go over. But yeah, no, a huge achievement for them. And look, it's going to be a big ask for them in Connacht as well, because they're a new side to it as well. They haven't been winning really at all in Roscommon. So look, for them going into Connacht now, it's going to be a big ask. But yeah, look, huge achievement for them.
Oh, yeah, without doubt. I mean, that was a magical finish to the game. And now, of course, Strokestown go into the Connacht Championship where they'll be swimming with some sharks. I mean, whoever comes out of Galway, which we're going to talk about, of course, the Galway semi-finals, some absolute mad drama. And this Mountbellew Moylough, who were hotly tipped to be All-Ireland contenders, don't make it out of Galway. Moycullen 3-9. Mountbellew Moylough 9 points in the other semi-final. Salthill knocked McCara beat Anna down. But we're going to talk about Moycullen versus Mountbellew first. I mean, what a day for Moycullen. And it's being labelled a lot as an upset, but a lot of people in Galway were actually saying like that it's not that much of a surprise. Moycullen are the 2020 Galway senior champions. Of course, there was no All-Ireland Club Championship that year with COVID. But, I mean, you look through the Moycullen team, like they've got the Kelly brothers, they've got some serious talent. So to beat Mountbellew, like, is that just another day at the office for Moycullen? Because they're also a really, really talented team.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, I didn't see it coming. I thought Mountbellew. I was saying Mountbellew were already going to be a team that I was looking at for to win Connacht and stuff as well. And look, I thought they would come out through Galway. And look, yeah, maybe people in Galway were probably better, best I suppose in the in what was happening the day to day, I suppose there. But look, it's a huge result for Moycullen. And look, I obviously game not being televised and stuff as well. But from all accounts, when like Sean Kelly was absolutely imperious as well, and all the Kellys were just really, really strong in that and dragged them over the line in a way. And yeah, look, you listed some of the players there as well. Again, really strong side too. And that I do think that the Galway Championship is probably one of the strongest championships going at the moment. And that, like, I suppose recent years we've had Kerfin in there too, and there's some really, really good teams that haven't been shown just because of Kerfin's dominance. So, like, the you have to say that the fact that when Mountbellew beating Kerfin earlier as well, and then Mountbellew being beaten, Moycullen have to be considered as a really, really like strong possibility that they'll be come out as the Connacht champions too. But then look, I think they'll have a huge task against Salthill as well, because look, they look really, really good too as well. Some really nice players, particularly Finnerty up in the full forward line, that like you can't write them off either as well. I wouldn't be hugely confident, but I think after that you probably would be leaning Moycullen as the favourites for the final though.
Yeah, but of course we do have to talk, of course, Salthill, Knocknacarra beating Anna down in the other semi-final. Standout players for them, Tom O'Callaghan, 4 points, Robert Finnerty, 5 points. And of course, they've John O'Mahony in the backroom team. So they're definitely a worthy opponent for Moycullen in the final. I mean, to beat an Anna downside, which of course has the likes of Comer, to beat them by 112 to 9 points, that's very impressive. In a Galway championship where in the quarterfinals, the biggest winning margin was 2 points, like this is a championship, as you said, that is right up there, I think, as the most competitive championship in the country. I'd obviously go with the Tyrone championship as the most competitive. I mean, 10 different winners in the last 10 years, like, is absolutely remarkable. But in Galway, like, the level of competition is fierce. And I
Yeah,
mean,
and
Salthill
the
getting to the
players are
final,
probably
they're a
better as
worthy
well.
contender.
Like I think that the quality is a lot better in Galway too, and that yeah maybe the winners sometimes are being repeated and stuff, but I do think the overall quality is far better in Galway club football than Tyrone right now, and that I do think for that like it has to be considered right up there too, and like it's again it's another final that's really shaped up nicely, and I have to say like whoever comes out as the Galway title winners, look, they're going to be heavy favourites for Connacht, I'd say, straight away coming out as well. You're looking at this year in particular, Strokestown coming out of Roscommon. Mayo is going to have a new winners this year, probably, well, one of Ballina Westport as well, where look at teams that haven't been competing in Connacht really at all. And then look, we know Turlestrand has won a few ones for Sligo as well, but like they've won 7 in a row, but they haven't really competed up in Connacht. And then Leitrim, we've got new title winners as well. So look, it's really opened up Connacht in that it's going to be a completely novel pairings of team, I suppose, in there. Other than Turlestrand, it's going to be all new teams, and that I think it's wide open for the Galway teams already here now.
Yeah, I would agree, but I'd also say Strand might have bit of a leg up because of the dominance that they've had in Sligo and because of the, experience of playing in the kind of club championship. I think that they could have a bit of a leg up on, obviously Moycullen won the Galway title, but as I mentioned, there was no All-Ireland club championship because of COVID. So Turlestrane will end up being the only team to have actually been at this stage really before. So it will be an interesting one to see if they can make that experience count. We saw how important it is for like Kilmacud Crokes, for example, over in Dublin, that when the game got down to the wire, they've been there before. They know how to get over the line. Turlestrane, I know that they haven't won a Connacht Club Championship, but they've played there. They have the experience, and experience is vital. So it'll be interesting to see how they make it work. Obviously, then moving on to the Leinster Championship, though, three very, very entertaining games here. The first one we'll talk about, Palatine, the Carlow champions beating St. Patrick's, and they did it very, very comfortably. I mean, I actually really like Palatine's team. They've got obviously Conor Lawler there at centre back. They've got Kieran Moran alongside him. And then they've got young Crowley up in the forwards, who has proven himself to be a really, really quality forward here in this club championship. They beat St. Patrick's, who were worthy Wicklow champions, and they beat them quite comprehensively. And like, I wouldn't say that Palatine are direct contenders for the Leinster Championship, but I do have an interesting question here. Like, say for a Portarlington, or say for a team that will be focusing on a Kilmacud Crokes and focusing on trying to make them slip up, do you think that maybe a Palatine could be a banana skin for a team that's trying to punch up and they're not looking down?
Yeah, look, I absolutely do, and look, we've seen in recent years as well when we've like there was the famous one when Vincent's went down to Wicklow anyway as well and lost to Rathnew and stuff, that these things happen in Leinster all the time, that teams are there for scalps. And that we're going to talk about Ardee in a second. I think they're another team that are well capable of taking a scalp. And yeah, I think there's some sides there now that we're looking at that are going to be really putting it up to. I do think that there is this tier that Crokes, Naas and Portarlington probably are in that tier. Maybe Rathout are just behind them as well. And then there are these teams that can cause the shocks. And like, it's starting to shape up kind of nicely there now. That I do think that Ardee and Rathnew are those two teams that can cause serious problems going forward in there as well. So look, it'll be an interesting one going forward. But yeah, obviously, look, they're not going to be considered favourites. They're going to have the long odds in every game they play as well. But look, job done in their first game as well. And look, we'll talk about Ardee now in a second. Had a great win over Colmcilles from Longford too, and that they've some really nice players. Again, another team that have ended a long wait as well. So look, a bit of a run in Leinster would be a nice bonus to them.
Yeah, and then you mentioned obviously about St. Mary's Ardee beating Colmcilles of Longford champions. They did that by 3-7 to 7 points. They had to battle their way out of the Louth Championship. Obviously, the first game, they went to the first final. Sorry, they needed a replay to get through the Louth Championship in that final. Now beating Colmcilles, who of course beat Mullinachta there in Longford. Like, moving forward, St. Mary's Ardee, like, they'll be pretty confident. Like, a 6-point victory here against the Longford champions, like, they're looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just they've had to come out through some battles, and that they're playing a lot of football close at the moment, and that they're having to go the long way as well by playing round one in Leinster, no bye for them. So that's the thing, is that they're having to do it the hard way anyway as well. But look, they're a good side as well. That look, we all know how competitive the Louth Championship has been, and that they were about 20 something years before they won this title as well. So look, they're another team that, like, nobody's going to want to play them, and that there are potential banana skin as well there. Look, but obviously when it comes down to it as well, when you see teams with resources like Naas and Kilmacud, like, look, they're always going to be probably not considered to be the favourites as well, just due to sheer numbers and sheer kind of I don't know, even financial stuff as well, population, these sort of factors that, look, they're always gonna be up against the wall, I suppose. Them.
Yeah, true. And then the last game, of course, that was on in the Leinster Championship, Portarlington, they beat Castletown, the Wexford champions, by 111 to 10 points. They made it a lot harder for themselves, and I think a lot of people thought it would be. Of course, Paddy O'Sullivan scoring the clinching goal for Portarlington. Do you think that they looked a bit off the pace maybe in this game, Portarlington, obviously with future eyes on, obviously trying to punch up to a Naas or a Kilmacud, but I don't think they looked as good as they can in this game.
No, they didn't. And the other thing to worry about is, look, Jake Foster got red card at the end for an involvement with a water boy from the other team as well. So like, that was that's a real kind of unnecessary one probably as well, and that's going to be that's going to be something that's difficult for the next round as well. But look, I think it will improve, and that they're a team that once the pitch gets a bit drier and a bit, if they can get onto better surfaces, they get to Croke Park, I think they'll be an awful lot better team because they're a footballing side. They like to kick the ball, and they like to go more orthodox than what we've seen from other teams. So I think the challenge for Portarlington is just get through those games and get to Croke Park and then start playing their football then. And I think if they can get to Croke Park, they can put up to anyone.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, I was very impressed with them when they actually did play Kilmacud Crokes last year. I thought that they absolutely put it up to them. And yeah, I mean, you have to talk about that. So yeah, before we wrap up, Luke, what's your moment of the weekend?
Yeah, look, I suppose it's a hard one to know. I suppose I think probably the closing few minutes, I think in Tipperary, the final for Tipperary was probably right up there as well, just for sheer drama and that. Look, I suppose the controversy with the point that was given when it was clearly wide, and then the late free from Willie Cleary as well, just due to sheer drama of that. I thought it was the best game of the weekend as well. So that would probably be the bit that stuck with me the most.
Yeah, no, I'd say that was in my mind that was game of the weekend. If I'm talking a pure moment of the weekend, I would say Tony Lavin's winner for Strokestown in the Roscommon final against the Boyle. I thought that was just an amazing moment to come on for his first appearance of the season. 3 minutes later, he's kicking the winner. I mean, and then the scenes at the end, like absolutely fantastic. So or the Eddie Gibbons save from Sean Baxter in the final of the Dublin Hurling Championship. I thought that was an outrageously good save. Those two moments for me are the two best moments of the weekend. But the Kilruane Kiladangan game was an absolute belter, and I can't wait for the replay of that. So yeah, guys, that is the full recap here on Play on GAA. Let us know what you thought of the weekend's action, and until the next one, take care.